Welcome to Conway Hall, and thank you, Ellen. New headphones, you see, so I'm just making sure that people can hear me. Welcome to Conway Hall. This is the first one I've hosted for this year, so I hope you're all keeping well. This talk is slightly in partnership with the London Fortean Society, but also with our talk strand Reweirding, which is a number of talks we've been running since the middle of last year. Really, we're not pretending to make the world a weirder place. It already is. But the idea is to stop you on your way so you can enjoy some of the strange things that are in the world around us. Which sort of takes us on to our talk tonight of Lovelocks. I'm sure we've all seen them. I've been partly responsible for putting one up on a cliff face in Southend-on-Sea. So really happy to have Ceri Houlbrook with us. Ceri is a lecturer in history and folklore at the University of Hertfordshire, and she's a member of the ominously named History Group. And she's interested in the intersection of history and material culture in folklore of the British Isles. So speaking on Lovelocked, where do they come from, and what do they want? Please welcome Ceri Houlbrook.
So thank you very much for inviting me. I will be sharing my PowerPoint from the start. Okay, I hope that everyone can see this. If you can't, pop something in chat just to let me know. But to start with, I'll just get the shameless self-promotion out of the way. So not only is this talk coinciding with the week of Valentine's Day, but also with the release of my book, which this talk is based on. So if anyone is interested enough after listening to me talk about it for about 45 minutes, please go right ahead and buy it. It's called Unlocking the Lovelock. It's published by Berghahn Publishers, but enough self-promotion. So I want to start by acknowledging that the padlock on the surface is a really boring object. I know this. And then I want to immediately counter that by saying that actually it's a fascinating object when you consider its history and the technology of it. And then when you delve into the ritual uses of the padlock, you see that the story becomes even more interesting. And that's what I'm going to be doing this evening. So by delving into Lovelocks, I'm hopefully going to demonstrate how a seemingly mundane object can tell us so much about the world in which we're living. Now, for any of you who don't know, I'm not sure why my PowerPoint isn't working. There we go. For any of you who don't know, Lovelocks are padlocks that have been inscribed with names, initials, messages, and attached to a bridge or another public structure. Typically, this is done by a couple. They lock the padlock in place and throw the key into the water below. And this folk custom, dubbed Lovelocking, is meant to signify, or at least, or maybe even ensure, enduring romantic commitment. Now, this is a global custom, and I don't mean that hyperbolically. So far, I've catalogued over 400 locations with Lovelocks across 62 countries in all continents bar Antarctica. Granted, it's far more popular in some areas than others, so there are a lot more Lovelock assemblages in Europe than there are in Africa, but it is fair to say that it's become a truly global phenomenon. Now, our knowledge of the history of Lovelocking is a bit patchy, and a few different origins have been proposed. So some sources claim it to be an ancient Chinese custom, dating back to some unspecified time when a young couple, forbidden to marry, threw themselves off the Yellow Mountain. Since then, apparently people have been attaching lovelocks in honor of this tragic love story. Or, as research shows, it was in the late 1990s or early 2000s when the Huangshan Parks Authority entered into a commercial arrangement with a padlock company to provide locks for tourists. And this photo is taken by Professor Trevor Sofield of Chinese University, Hong Kong, who visited the site frequently, and in the 1990s saw not a single Lovelock, and then from the late 1990s started to see them building up, and then all of a sudden by the 2000s they were just exploding everywhere. So the company set up about 20 stalls around the park selling Lovelocks, and they provided new chain link fences, key scenic spots, and they provided photo opportunities. So not just selling padlocks, but also instant photographs of couples attaching their lock. So probably not an ancient Chinese custom. Site in Europe claims to have the first one as well. So residents of Vergica Badja, spa town in Serbia, claim that their assemblage of lovelocks on their Bridge of Love dates back to World War I. And the tourist guide, as well as the information panel set up at the bridge, tells of how a local schoolmistress named Nadia was in love with Relia, a soldier, and their favorite place to meet was on this bridge. And the soldier left to fight in the First World War and never returned because he had fallen in love with a Greek woman and chose to stay there. And the schoolmistress, it said, died of a broken heart. And so according to the town's tourist guide, which I'll just quote, upset by Nadia's destiny, girls wishing to keep their own romance started writing down their names along with the names of their lovers on padlocks that they bound to the railings of the bridge, which used to be Nadia and Aurelia's favorite meeting place. Afterwards, the keys were symbolically thrown into the river. Although we tend to forget things, this story remains unforgotten, and in order to prolong its existence, the young kept on with the tradition of binding their love, and the bridge itself has got the name the Bridge of Love. So this is a piece of local folklore, and all the research I've done on the area seems to suggest that there's more fiction than fact here. So even though Nadia probably did exist, what appears to be kind of a century-old custom could be as recent as one on the Yellow Mountain. And certainly that's what local archivists and heritage specialists believe as well, that again it cropped up quite recently, and it certainly doesn't take long for a practice to develop its own patina. Another site in Europe is Pécs in Hungary, and they date their Lovelock fence to the 1980s. And this is historically accurate, although there doesn't seem to be a romantic origin story for this one. In fact, art historian Cynthia Hammond theorizes a connection with the punk music subculture permeating the youth scene of Hungary during this period. So during the 1970s, Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols adopted the padlock as a symbol, wearing one around his neck on a chain. And the padlock therefore became, in Hammond's words, a forceful symbol of resistance, dissent, and art against convention. So was this very early assemblage of padlocks more about resistance and dissent than romance? Probably. While in Murano, Italy, soldiers at the local barracks would attach the padlocks from their lockers to the bridge once their military service was over. This was definitely occurring in the 1990s, may have started earlier. Again, though, it doesn't appear to have been about declaring love, but more about celebrating the end of service. Now, as far as I can tell, it wasn't until the 2000s when attaching a padlock to a bridge became a ritual of romance. And it was a teenage romance novel sparked it. So in 2006, Italian writer Federico Mochia published Ho voglio di te, I Want You, in which a character attaches a padlock to the Ponte Milvio in Rome. And this is a statement of the romantic commitment. This book was very successful amongst teenagers and was made into films in Italian and Spanish, which gained a huge fan base. So local teenagers imitated the practice of locking a padlock here, and unsurprisingly, tourists were soon following suit. Interestingly, the Lovelocks in the film, which we see in this scene here, are genuine. So in the time between the book coming out, February 2006, and the making of the film in 2007, the assemblage had formed. And this has been called the Mochia Phenomenon. It tells us something about the fan culture and the transition from popular culture to popular custom. And this certainly isn't uncommon. The literature, film and television are well-known travel inducements, attracting fans to the sites that feature in the fiction. So fans of Lord of the Rings travel to New Zealand in their search for Middle-earth. Fans of the Twilight Saga travel to Forks in Washington. And similar to the Mochia phenomenon is what Amy Sargent terms the Darcy effect, which saw immense increases in visits to historic homes following the hugely successful 1995 BBC adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. And visitor numbers at the National Trust property Lime Park, so BBC's Pemberley, rose from 32,000 to 91,000 the year of the mini-series release, and I will freely admit that I was one of them, and then went back when they had that giant statue of Mr. Darcy in his shirt wading in the lake. So what compels such visits? I must
say that is an enormous Darcy.
It was wonderful, it was wonderful. What compels such visits? Well, actually, all writes that fans seek connections with fictional characters through a sense of shared geographical, if not temporal, space. And such trips offer the possibility of inhabiting a beloved narrative. Often, reenactments are transient, consisting of a single action that lasts no longer than a few moments, but they can sometimes leave tangible traces, physically altering the landscapes and creating something real that only previously existed in fiction. So one example is this site here, which you may recognize the significance of, platform 9 3/4 from Harry Potter at London King's Cross train station, where you can queue up at the staged platform, don a Hogwarts scarf, grasp hold of the handlebars of a half-disappeared luggage trolley, and pose for photos. And I wish I could claim that I'd done this purely for research purposes, but I would be lying. And then this bench in Oxford's Botanical Gardens. I don't know if anyone knows the significance of this particular place. It is covered in graffiti, mainly just W+L with love hearts. And it is, of course, Will and Lyra's bench from Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials. Unofficial, this isn't kind of sponsored by anybody, just fans have gone there and they've made it their own. So to use a folkloric term, these are examples of ostensive action, the physical enactment of folk narrative and legend. So in Rome, with the Padlocks, we're witnessing the transition from popular culture to popular custom. An assemblage of Lovelocks is formed because of one teenage romance novel. And once established in Rome, it spread like wildfire. Reaching Paris, that capital of romance and tourism, was its critical moment, its point of no return. So from then, its dissemination was incredibly rapid and geographically unbound. And that's how we've got Lovelock assemblages in places as distant and diverse as New York and Newport, Beijing and Blackpool. Now, its success as a global custom is probably due to the broad familiarity of its symbolism. People worldwide know that padlocks are designed to lock one thing to another. And whether or not you associate that kind of symbolism with romantic relationships, you can still surely see its applicability. The padlock also symbolizes strength and security. It's an object that's designed to be secure, to hold strong, to resist destruction. And these aren't incidental aspects to the padlock. They're integral to its whole purpose. So the symbolism of the padlock really is quite overt. The symbolism of the bridge itself may also be significant. Like the padlock, the bridge connects one thing to another, one side of a river to the other side, a good place for declaring romantic attachment. But there is the risk of overinterpretation. So the popularity of the bridge for this custom more likely stems from a far simpler reason: its proximity to water. So remember, typically a couple are supposed to lock the padlock and then throw the key into the water below as a way of making it irretrievable and the lovelock all the more secure. So if you need water for this custom, then a bridge is surely the most suitable place, especially as most of them have railings or suspension cables to attach the padlocks onto. So the padlock symbolizes the relationship, evident by the fact that most of them bear the couple's names or initials. By locking it in place for the world to see shows a level of commitment to that relationship, while the throwing away of the key into the water is a symbolic step in declaring confidence in that commitment. It's a romantic rite of passage in that it's come to almost signify a pledge or a promise. But this isn't just me making assumptions. This is me having asked the people who've locked padlocks to bridges. So Scott, remind me to talk to you afterwards. So one woman told me of a trip to Paris with her boyfriend. And when they saw the Lovelocks on one of the bridges, she got very, very excited and wanted to buy one to add. But her boyfriend was completely indifferent about it. And the woman surprised herself and her boyfriend by actually getting very upset about this. She said she knew it was silly, but it felt like her boyfriend just wasn't willing to make that kind of symbolic step. When he realized how upset she was, he snuck back to the bridge and bought a lovelock. So it has a happy ending. But it shows that even though it may seem like a very small, casual gesture, in some cases, it actually has quite a lot of meaning behind it. Now, official responses to this phenomenon have been varied. Some places, such as the Yellow Mountain and Virgin Badger, encourage it. They've made it part of their identity, primarily for tourist purposes. And this is the same at a number of other sites. So Gretna Green made their Wall of Love in 2015. And in the nearby gift shop, you can buy a lovelock for a whopping $19.99. Various wedding venues throughout the UK and North America also have kind of their own lovelock walls or gates. And Lovelock, Nevada, which is a town named after English settler George Lovelock, have been kind of capitalizing on their name and connecting it to the Lovelock custom. And I'm just going to show you their kind of promotional video for it. And if you thought the other one was cheesy, just wait until you watch this. I apologize, there is a bit of a time lag with the volume, the audio.
Welcome to Lovelock, Nevada, where friends, family, and lovers come to forever lock their love. Shortly after the turn of the millennium, Lovelock adopted the ancient Chinese custom of symbolically locking one's love on a never-ending chain. Dedicated on Valentine's Day 2006, this custom has made Lovelock the nation's official love-locking destination. It is said that as long as your lock remains on the chain, love will endure. Hundreds of locks adorn the plaza here in Lovelock, placed with care by lovers wishing to symbolize their everlasting love. Simply attach your lock to the chain and throw away the key, thus uniting your love for eternity. Or better yet, keep the key as a constant reminder of your everlasting love. I caught up with Kirsten Hertz with Lovelock's Chamber of Commerce to find out a little bit more about locking your love here in Lovelock. So tell us, please, how did the whole lock your love thing get started?
Well, it's really kind of exciting, and we were in the process of looking for an idea to really put Lovelock on the map. And at the same time, the Nevada Commission on Tourism was making efforts to open the Chinese market to tourism. And their staff member, Lemin Liu, saw the name Lovelock and linked it to the attraction in China, which is known as Lover's Lock. And so that's kind of where the tradition came from, and we've built on it here and kind of created our Nevada version.
So how many locks approximately are here on the chains, you think?
There's several hundred right now, and then we're working towards adding additional chain and additional bollards to let more people lock their love, and hopefully it'll expand all through town.
So, Cammie, I saw you locking your love with your mommy over there. Tell us why you wanted to do that.
Well, because I love my mommy and I wanted to show her how much I really love her. So 20 years from now, we can come back, find our lock, and remember all the good times we had locking our love at Lovelock, Nevada.
Oh, that's so sweet. So even mommies and their daughters can come to Lovelock and lock their love, right, Cami?
Yes.
With your lock, you can also get a Polaroid shot and a note card where you have the opportunity to share your love story with the world. Here's some recent examples. Here's the secret to love according to Lila and Monty. Always looking for fun, laughing at ourselves, and respect. And Sandra and Dave's secret, a person never knows how many remaining years they have. Cherish each day with your lover, do special things, and let the little things go. In the middle of the Nevada desert, where you think only the sagebrush flower grows, there is something extraordinary blooming just east of Reno, and that something is love. My beautiful wife, Wendy, couldn't be here with me today, but I got a lock for us. It says Dave and Wendy, 2006. Now our love is locked. Love you, honey. So make the trip out here to Lovelock and see how locking your love will make it last forever. Load up the car and visit Lovelock, Nevada, located just a little over an hour east of Reno on I-80. Learn more about locking your love at loverslock.com.
I did warn you that it was very, very cheesy. So as we see, some places really promote the custom. Other places merely tolerate it. One example is Manchester, which I'll be talking about later on. And other places, as I'm sure you're aware, have removed lovelocks, fearing that the lovelocks compromise the structural integrity of the bridge, and they've banned the practice. The most notable example of this is in Paris. So in 2014, one of the panels on the Pont des Arts collapsed under the weight of locks. So the following year, the bolt cutters were out in force, and they removed over 1 million locks. The same things happened in Melbourne, many other locations worldwide. Closer to home, it's happened at Newcastle and Leeds, which again, I'll be talking about in a moment. So I've been studying lovelocks for over 6 years now, and there are various strands to my research. So for one, I interview people. So people who've locked their love, but also authorities and land managers who've made the decision to either encourage the practice or remove the locks. I consider the custom from a commercial and tourism perspective, and I consider it from a popular culture perspective, tracing their many appearances in film, TV, books, etc. However, as someone with a PhD in archaeology, focusing on the material culture tends to be my kind of default methodology. So my field work has taken two forms. So firstly, kind of just ad hoc engagement with lovelock assemblages whenever I just happen to come across them, which is pretty much every time I go on holiday. So my poor husband, even on our honeymoon, had to put up with lovelock field work. And then more structured field work. So one example was Leeds. So I've already mentioned that they removed their lovelock. This was back in October 2016 from their Centenary Bridge because they were concerned about structural damage. They took all of the removed locks back to their offices and were willing to let me go and have a look at them and catalogue them. Now, I only catalogued the ones with legible inscriptions, but this still amounted to 682, so a really rich data set for me to draw on. And I'll be returning to these later. And then the Manchester Lovelock Bridge, which is located along Oxford Road in the city centre, running over the Rochdale Canal. Now, I first noticed lovelocks there in February 2014. At the time, there were only 7 of them, but having seen them already in Paris, Moscow, and Prague, I was really excited in a nerdy way to see them so close to home. And at the time, I was doing my PhD at Manchester University, so I was walking past this bridge at least once a week. And every week, I would go and photograph any new additions, kind of catalogue the inscriptions. So I kept a record of it, adding them to a spreadsheet. From 2014 to 2019, so 5-year period, and data of 723 Lovelocks, and I'll just show you. So kind of this was start, and then just continued growing. And the catalogue is available online. Did I mention that Berghahn have recently published my Lovelock book? I may have mentioned it, but on their website, freely accessible to anyone, is the data of these Lovelocks in spreadsheet form. And they've also added a kind of quite a nifty timeline tool to it as well. Now, it's all well and good to collect the data, but what can I actually learn from it? So by recording the inscriptions, I've been able to learn quite a lot about the customs and reasons behind participation. Firstly, I noticed a division between clearly planned Lovelocks and then potentially spontaneous ones. So the spontaneous ones are ones such as on the left here that could have been purchased near the Lovelock Bridge. So someone might have seen them, gone to a shop, bought a Lovelock, bought a marker, written the message and attached it quite spontaneously. Maybe, maybe not. But the planned ones, they had to have been planned. So many of them are professionally engraved, and others clearly took quite a long time and a lot of effort to make. And there are quite a lot of websites out there that offer the service of professionally engraving Lovelocks and sending them out. They normally take a couple of weeks to do, so yeah, definitely have to have been planned. Now, what do the words on the inscriptions tell us? Well, unsurprisingly, a lot about love. So forever and always are words that feature a lot. Has got my heart forever, locked in love features a few times. So some inscriptions speak of a clear romantic purpose. Others refer to specific romantic events, so kind of milestones in relationships. First year, 5 years, 12 years, golden wedding anniversary. And some appear to have created romantic moments. So quite a few feature messages of "Will you marry me?" Whether or not they actually form part of the proposal, we can't know, but they do clearly mark this significant moment in a relationship, whether it was just kind of celebrating engagement. But not all love is romantic. So sometimes it's friendships that appear to be celebrated. Others seem to be celebrating familial bonds, sisters, parents, grandparents. Others appear to honour kind of individual milestones or events, studying abroad, probably the birth of a baby to becoming free, going to see Billy Elliot at the Palace Theatre, which is just across the road from the bridge, birthdays. And then quite a number had names and words associated with Manchester United Football Club. And as a hereditary Manchester City fan, I was in two minds about cataloguing them, but in the end, academic integrity did win out, and there they are. Some Lovelocks are more commemorative and quite sad to catalogue, really. One refers to the Manchester Arena bombing at the Ariana Grande concert, inscribed with the words "One Love Manchester," and decorated with the B, which is the symbol of Manchester. And then quite a number of others are clearly commemorative to certain individuals. And as archaeologist David Petts observes, durable items serve to crystallize into physical form the dynamic act of remembrance. That's a quote from Petts. And it's unsurprising that Lovelocks have developed memorializing functions alongside romantic ones, with the symbolism of the padlock being particularly appropriate to messages of memory. Now, methods have been employed to kind of dehomogenize what is essentially a very homogeneous object, so to make them distinct from each other. It's mainly with decoration. A lot of them are love related, again, unsurprisingly. So you're seeing a lot of love hearts, crosses, flowers, lemniscates, various things attached to the Lovelocks. Interestingly, the one over on the right is decorated with silver tinsel and a plastic skeleton. I would love to know the story behind that. Sadly, I do not. And clearly the desire to distinguish has motivated these embellishments. As I said at the start, padlocks are, after all, on the surface quite boring, homogeneous items. And in some of them, I think we're also seeing the relationships being constructed through these decorations. So the Lovelocks are meant to represent the people who are locking their love. So to bring in some anthropological theory, this would fit with what Alfred Gell terms the objectification of personhood. People become represented by objects, and this is quite obvious in the padlocks that have kind of these self-portraits of couples with photographs imposed on some of them. So this is kind of Gell's theory of distributed personhood, where the deposit, the object, becomes kind of a detached part, a spin-off of the depositor. So the lovelock becomes a spin-off of the couple. And this is all useful stuff from a kind of archaeological perspective, but I could have gathered this from looking at the Leeds examples. What I want to do briefly now is to consider the benefits and archaeological implications of looking at the Manchester lovelocks over a period of time. So most archaeologists who study ritual deposition, obviously, especially prehistoric and historic ones, they only get the chance to view the assemblage at one stage in its formation. Often this is post-assembly. So they see the finished product, so to speak. They study the collection of objects, the assemblage, once people have stopped adding to it. Luckily for me, I could study the Manchester lovelocks over time. I've been able to watch the assemblage grow from just 7 lovelocks to over 700. So how has it helped me? Well, firstly, I've been able to trace the growth of it. I can know that all of the lovelocks weren't added at once, and I can create a graph that looks like this, showing kind of the number go up from February 2014 to February 2019. It shows me the quantities of lovelocks steadily increasing. Now, this has put to bed one of my earlier theories. So Clive Gamble, archaeologist and anthropologist, writes that ritual assemblages have a magnetic-like effect. So deposits attract more deposits. So I'd assume that once a lovelock assemblage had become established, once there were enough lovelocks there, the rate of deposition would increase exponentially. So the graph would just shoot up once it reached a certain point. But as you can see, it's actually been very, very steady throughout the 5 years. However, if I transfer the data to a graph like this, which shows the amount added each month, you can see something a little bit different. So 11 lovelocks is the average that were added per month, but there is real variation in this. So March 2014 saw only 1 lock added. August 2015 saw the highest with 29 locks. What might account for these fluctuations? Is it purely random, or are there reasons behind them? Now, back in 2010 and 11, Duncan Garrow considered how an archaeologist might interpret similarly irregular patterns of deposition. So he looked at the different types of material recycled by households in Merseyside and noted spikes and slumps that were easily explained by patterns in everyday life. So the increase of garden waste during summer months and glass disposal over and after the Christmas period. And I don't know about anybody else, but kind of after the Christmas period, my paper bin took about a month to go down. So these kinds of patterns, and as Garrow concludes, patterns of variability were not created intentionally in order to convey a symbolic message. The people making these deposits will not have been aware of the patterns they helped create. However, that is not to say that those patterns are meaningless. They do have something significant to say about the rhythms of everyday practice. So what might the fluctuations in the lovelock deposits mean? If, like Garrett's contemporary waste, lovelocking was linked to particular seasons or festivals, the assumption might be that Valentine's Day, for example, would see an increase in lovelocks. What better day than to ritually declare your love than on the day traditionally associated with romance? However, February witnessed only minor spikes, and February 2018 saw a decline. And I actually spent 6 hours standing at the Lovelock Bridge on one Valentine's Day, hoping to get some interviews. It was a cold day, nobody came. I broke once for lunch, came back, and lo and behold, a Lovelock had been added. So whether they'd been hiding and waiting for me to leave, I waited another 3 hours and absolutely nothing. So clearly not a particularly popular day for it. So I'm still at a loss to explain most of the fluctuations, but can suggest a few possible reasons for the surges in August 2015 and 17. So firstly, the summer holidays increases number of visitors to Manchester, increasing the amount of potential lovelockers. Secondly, August bank holiday weekend is when Manchester hosts the Gay Pride Parade, passing close to Oxford Road Bridge, which witnesses upwards of 40,000 participants. So not only does the parade kind of elevate visitors' numbers to this particular area of the city, but it generates a kind of celebratory or commemorative atmosphere that might inspire deposits. So the spikes in August therefore may reveal something significant about city life, the rhythms of city life. And thirdly, a newspaper which appeared in Manchester Evening News in August 2015, details the location of the Oxford Road Lovelocks and explains the custom, comparing it to Paris and New York. So quite a lot of pride about Manchester kind of having the same custom as Paris and New York. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that some of the lovelockers in August 2015 had been inspired by this newspaper article. And that in itself highlights the role that the media might play in the perpetuation of customs and the dissemination of customs. And another interesting thing I discovered was that one lovelock does not necessarily equal one depositional event. So one locking. So 34 of the lovelocks appear to have been hijacked, for want of a better word. So hijacked in the sense that they were locked at one point in time with an inscription, and then weeks, months, or even years later, someone has come along and written over the original message. The original message may have faded away, or they've just written right across it in pen. And this has happened, a number of them, some just once, and then other examples have seen it happen a number of times, where the original message fades, then the next message fades, and so on. So this teaches a vital lesson, that an object's biography does not end at its moment of deposition. As archaeologist Chris Fowler observes, artifacts like people are multiply authored, and as Alina Gruner notes, they can go beyond the intentionality of the person who originally constructed them. So the lovelock is a product not necessarily just of its original depositor, but of later authors whose engagement can alter the object both tangibly and intangibly. It's not, however, only this kind of recycling of lovelocks that demonstrates their continued biography. There is evidence suggesting that some lovelocks were in fact later altered by their original lockers. So according to the widely known tradition, by attaching a lovelock to a bridge, throw the key into the water below, and if you ever want to separate, then you have to go into the water, fish out the key, and unlock the padlock. Now, at least 8 lovelocks have been removed from the Manchester Bridge over the course of this 5-year period. And whether this was done by the original lockers or by somebody else, we can't know. But either way, it's doubtful that they would have waded into the Rochdale Canal, not the cleanest waterway in the world, in order to find the key. So perhaps they used bolt cutters, or perhaps they kept hold of the key just in case. And in other cases, a slightly easier method has been used, the erasing of the inscription, scribbled over, or in this case, the words "broke up, sorry" written over. Again, this could have been done by somebody else, not necessarily the original lockers, but it shows that the biographies of these objects continue. And this happens in other ways too. So no lock is deposited indefinitely. I've already mentioned that there have been mass removals of them by local authorities. So Leeds, one example, sorry, removing their lovelocks, and they very considerately spread the word that people could go and collect their removed lock if they wanted to, and quite a lot of people did. They either went to the council building and picked up their lock, or they sent a self-addressed envelope for it to be posted out to them. So in honor of Valentine's Day, here are just a few love stories for you from the Leeds examples. So Andy and Naomi tell me that they attached a lovelock to the Centenary Bridge back in June 2015 as part of their 1-year anniversary. Naomi had seen the lovelocks in Paris and wanted to celebrate their anniversary by following the custom, but in Leeds. They were in a long-distance relationship. Andy was studying in Leeds, and they thought the Centenary Bridge was a perfect place to put it. It was special to us to have something with our names on in Leeds. Naomi had ordered the lovelock from eBay with their initials professionally engraved. They went to the bridge together, attached the lock, took a photo of it, this photo shown here, and threw the key into the river. But that wasn't the last time they saw it. Whenever Naomi came to visit, they would return to the bridge to seek out their lovelock as something special for us to do. Which is why it was such a surprise when they made their way back there, only to discover all of the lovelocks had gone. It was, Naomi said, a pretty upsetting way to find out. Fortunately, Leeds Council kept the removed lock safe, and I was able to find their lock as one that I'd catalogued. And it looks very different as an archaeological artifact. It looks quite sad, actually, there with its photography scale and its broken shackle. Very different as a ritual deposit. But Andy and Naomi reclaimed their lock, and now they keep it as a keepsake in a box of memories. So again, it's shifted context once more. Claire and Drew had enjoyed a whirlwind romance in New Orleans in 2015. The following year, they were reunited in Leeds, where Claire lived. She passed the lovelocks often. She always liked seeing them. They hold stories and hope and love, and that made me smile. So when Drew came to Leeds, his first visit to the UK, she suggested that they add their own lovelock with their names, a date and a message. Drew was visiting for such a short time and I wasn't sure I'd ever see him again, Claire told me, so wanted to add my own memory. With Drew back in the US, Claire would often check on their lovelock when she crossed the bridge, and a month or two after locking their love, she took this photograph and sent it to Drew as a reminder. So again, very sad when they saw that the locks had been removed, and I came across lovelock when I was cataloguing them again. You can see it there, and not long after, Claire reclaimed it. I don't like the thought of it being disposed of, she explained. It marks a special time of my life that I wanted to keep, and what will she do with it now? She told me she'd keep it somewhere safe or maybe frame it as a gift for Drew. And then last love story is Kirsty and Andy's. So Kirsty attached her lovelock to Centenary Bridge on her birthday. It had been a present from her husband, and it was marking their first pregnancy. So he inscribed the lock with the words Andy, Kirsty and baby K, March 2014. They knew about the Leeds lovelocks, they lived nearby. And they wanted to attach theirs to that bridge rather than somewhere like Paris because the city is important to both our families. Plus, they like being able to look for their lock afterwards, often seeing it when they passed the bridge. Now, when they found out that about the removal of locks, they reclaimed it. She said it's a sentimental item that reminds us of a lovely time. So again, it's been placed in a keepsake box with other sentimental objects, which they'll give to their son, baby K, when he's older. So it's become something of an heirloom in that way. So just in these 3 interviews, we can see how much emotion goes into at least some of the Lovelocks. They mark special occasions, anniversaries, reunions, birthdays, pregnancies. They can be given as gifts. And once they're on the bridge, they're not forgotten. People might go back to view their lovelock. And when faced with the removal of the locks, people went to the effort of traveling there or sending envelopes to reclaim it. And what happened to the locks that weren't reclaimed? Well, some of them ended up exhibited in Spellbound, which is an exhibition at the Ashmolean, which ran in 2017 to 18. Now, the curatorial team wanted to demonstrate that magical thinking was as prevalent today as it was in the past. And lovelocks, so widely recognizable, were the ideal objects for this. So in a gallery dedicated to medieval love magic, the lovelocks adorned an entire wall, each one glued to a tiny shelf, and projected above them were the inscriptions from the locks, inscribed, interspersed with Latin and French inscriptions from medieval love tokens. And there have been various other creative responses to removed lovelocks. Paris, probably the most famous example. So huge public campaign against the lovelocks founded in January 2014, which dubbed lovelocks a destructive force. And their mission mantra was free your love, save our bridges. And you can see it at their Facebook page here. Now, they received over 10,000 signatures for the petition to remove the locks, which shows kind of the level of support it received. And a lot of the reasons given for this support were that the lovelocks are tacky, that it's vandalism, that it's selfish, and that they're destroying the beautiful bridges of Paris. Following this and the damage caused by the locks, city authorities removed over 1 million of them. But they didn't just dispose of them. So Paris City Hall chose a number of the locks and divided them into 150 bunches, which were then mounted on stands made of wood or recycled paving stone. And then in 2017, an auction was held, which also included whole sections of the bridge covered in lovelocks. And the proceeds were earmarked for free migrant and refugee charities. And the auction was unexpectedly successful. Some of the bunches sold for over €1,000. One of the railings sold for 17,000, and the total amount raised was €250,000. So just from the removed lovelocks. Melbourne is another case, much smaller scale, but still very interesting. So 20,000 lovelocks removed from South Bank pedestrian bridge. And authorities decided that they would commission 5 local artists to turn the removed lovelocks into their own works of art. So they were incorporated into, for instance, you see here, a very large convict's coin necklace, which drew on the Australian practice of giving coins as love tokens, and then being smelted down to create the bell, which we see on the right. And these were put on public display. And then members of the public entered a lottery, and the winners won an item of art to take home with them. And I spoke with one of the winners, so that the woman who won the bell, and she displays it in her garden. We see it over on the left. And she said that the bell is beautiful, sounds magnificent, and I just love its history, my own bit of Melbourne's love life. So, drawing to a conclusion now, the heritage value of lovelocking is a very polarizing topic. Some people love them, some people hate them, labeling them vandalism, ugly, and selfish. But whether you think they should be left in place, retained as artifacts of cultural value, disposed of, or banned, there is one thing that you can't deny. There is so much story encapsulated in the simple, mundane object of the padlock. So many people who touch it and are touched by it. And this shows us that an object doesn't need to be unique, expensive, old or beautiful to be special. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, David and Jessica, too. Right, so we've got now we're going to have a Q&A. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, so apologies. How we do it is we do create the opportunity for you to ask your question directly to Ceri. If you use the question and answer box that's at the bottom of Zoom, type in your question and then we can open your microphone, only your microphone, we won't be able to see you, to ask your question. Or if you have a question you don't or are unable to speak into your computer, just say, please read out your question. Matt White and Tony McGrath have put a couple of questions in, but I wanted to say really quickly before, when I did the lock, which was in, I think, May 2008, it was for a friend's wedding, and it was above the sea, but way above the sea. There was no way anyone could throw the key into the sea. So what we did was we got 4 helium balloons and tied one of the keys to those and let go, and luckily it flew off. And there is a little bit of film on Facebook if you want to see it, which I can send to you. Oh, let's do it now. Hang on. Sorry, everyone. Where is it? Where is it? Let me just get that out of the way. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
I was really scared because I didn't think all the balloons were going to take off.
That's fantastic.
So that's how we did it.
Right. Oh wow, I've not come across that at all.
I'm gonna stop there because I don't want anybody seeing who the couple is. Hang on. They're no longer together. Yeah, so that's how we did it. And I went and got I bought an ordinary padlock and got it engraved in like an engraver's opposite Liverpool Street Station to like get their initials into it. So anyway, we have a couple of questions. We hope to get more from people. So if you type into the Q&A box, we can open up your microphone if need be. Matt White, you do have a question. Hope you can hear us.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Hi, Ceri. That was a really good talk.
Thank you.
You said at the beginning that there's no Lovelocks in Antarctica.
Oh, please prove me wrong.
Oh, no, I was going to say, if an enterprising like scientist or some other visitor was to correct it, after hearing about that from you, how would you feel about being the person who actually spread it to the final corner of the world?
This sounds more than just a question.
I guess I would probably feel like my I mean, you're supposed to be distant from things as an archaeologist, aren't you? You're supposed to not influence, but actually I'd probably be quite proud.
It was the bit where you were saying about like the transition from popular culture, from like pop culture to popular culture, and it would just be, I was looking up, there's 5,000 people live there in the summer, so you've got a chance.
I have got a chance. I mean, there may well be some. I've just not been able to find any evidence of it, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Somebody in those 5,000 people must surely have. But yes, it would be good.
Matt, you're not. I just want to check, Matt. You're not making a trip yourself at any point soon.
I wish I was.
I mean, I know we all wish we were making a trip anywhere at the moment.
Yeah.
But,
I am kind of. I need to check with a couple of people who I think might know somebody. I know someone who's been there. I'm going to ask them just in case they know of anything, or if they know anybody going back.
Please do. Please do. I would love to hear about it if any are found.
Brilliant stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Tony McGrath. You've got a question too.
I have. Thank you. Excellent talk. Really enjoyed it. And mine probably leads into Matt's question as well. You mentioned that there was 400 locations that you've come across. And I'd be interested, is there a map of that, or is there a dynamic map that people can subscribe locations that they may have spotted? And then if there was such a thing, that might actually encourage people to create, as Matt said, more locations, like, oh, we'll develop a new location here and we'll get it on the map. Because like there's been a couple of new bridges in Cork here, and they've all got done. So new bridge, yeah, okay, we'll stick it on the railing. So I was just wondering, is there a dynamic map, and can be populated by people who are just passing by?
Thank you very much for that. So it's really interesting to hear that new bridges are still being populated with Lovelocks. I was wondering if it was actually dying out, but no. In short, there is no kind of all-encompassing map. There are a few efforts have been made online to get one started, and I was hoping to kind of do one myself using the History Pin website, which I've used for other things, but it's just a matter of time. I would definitely still like to do it, but I've not been able to yet, sadly.
Yeah, no, there's an interesting one that I saw done over here, and it was to do with religious grottos. So if you saw one, you could just get the Google Street View and link it in. Now, I haven't seen that leading to an increase in the erection of religious grottos, but that's just one that I have seen. So I'll look at your History Pin as well now. Just keep me distracted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. If anyone does have another question, do please, you can raise your hand or put a quick question into the Q&A. Otherwise, we'll be calling it a night. I'm gonna, if you don't mind me commenting again, Ceri. When you were looking at when you saw the massive Darcy, and people are like visiting the Hobbit sets in New Zealand, I think one thing that's fascinated me is people's ability to mythologize something that is fictional or unreal, or is an actor standing in a pond, and make it a site for pilgrimage. I mean, it's the same with King's Cross Station. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sherlock phone box in just by St Bart's Hospital in central London.
No.
Okay, it is truly astonishing. So the reason why I'm rambling is to give anyone a chance if they've got another question, so they can chip in. It's not just about the sound of my own voice, I'm honest. So I think at the end of the second series of Benedict about Sherlock Holmes, he falls off the top of St Bart's Station, and that's what happened with Penny. And next to where that took place was a phone box. But after a while, people started coming along writing notes on the phone box, taking posting notes in the phone box, Sherlock lives, or Sherlock loves Watson. And the thing was covered, and I've been there with a lot of them in the room, and there's still a lot of things looking sharp. And even in the grot, in the windows next to the phone box, people have written, I am Sherlock, Sherlock loves Moriarty. So it is an amazing thing. I think one on the, I'm not quite sure. I'm feeding back my new headphones. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, sorry, you've we've lost your audio. Sorry, it's gone completely.
Okay, I'm back to doing this. Sorry about that. Yeah, weird new headphones. So yeah, and it's another place that I'm not sure if any folklorists have looked at. A lot of people have been to, and I've taken people to show it as an example of people's ability to make shrines on basically on fandom.
Ooh.
Sherlock Holmes and Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to check that out next time I'm in London. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. If there are no more questions, we will call it a night, I think. I want to say thank you very much everyone for attending. We will be doing other talks in the future. I've been a bit weary, so we've not done loads, but this is a brilliant start to the year. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ceri. Good luck with the book. What's it called again?
Unlocking the Lovelock.
Available from
Berghan.
Berghan. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck for you again. And well, yeah, Ross as me. I said thanks, great talk. And yeah, thanks everyone. Take care. One day later this year, we hope to see you at Conway Hall or elsewhere for a talk, all of you. But in the meantime, it's been lovely having you on my laptop. Thank you and good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.